So this falls squarely in this Atmanirbhar Bharat category, right? We've applied that to a lot of different things from household goods and day to day needs. But I think defense should fall probably at the top of Atmanirbhar Bharat. And one of the reasons why that's important is because we are seeing it with the Russia-Ukraine war right now. Depending on whose side you are on, if you're with America, without, against America, or just the NATO alliance, they are very trigger happy when it comes to sanctions, right? So in that distant future where we, for whatever reason, stand against the NATO to support some of our allies, the chances of sanctions coming on us are pretty high. A great example of that is the fact that India is waiting for deliveries of S-400 systems under the deal that we signed with Russia in 2018. Now, that entire deal is in sort of a limbo because if you procure from Russia, you have American sanctions waiting for you, waiting to happen on you. But we've already done the deal, and it's part of the plans. It was done in 2018, so we probably need these systems. I don't know the latest on it, but the last I read, this deal was in a limbo, and we couldn't figure out how to close the deal and get the material right. And we have a huge dependence on Russia for military goods, for defense equipments. In fact,
all of our MiGs also, man.
Exactly, all of our MiGs are from Russia. So this whole Russia-Ukraine thing, the entire geopolitical scenario is basically indicating that the more self-reliant you are, the higher your ability to withstand any of these external events that happen. But the problem is, India spends a lot of money for defense imports. We are the second largest defense equipment importer. We were number one a few years back, but Saudi Arabia has probably taken over because of the Yemen war and a lot of things that we've done within India to actually reduce the import dependence has resulted in the fact that we are now second. Not a significant improvement, but an improvement nonetheless.
I would say it's a big improvement. We used to import 14% of the entire world's arms. So that was a lot. We've reduced that to 9%. So from 14 to 9, I would say is a big improvement.
Yeah. And the other thing that the government is actually spoken about, and we've seen upward trend, is at the end of the day, what we want to do for the economy to grow is export as much as possible so that we can get foreign inflows coming in to strengthen the economy. And defense sector can actually be a great segment for exporting to a bunch of different countries that don't have the power to actually manufacture these goods, right? Right now, I think it's Israel, US, France, Russia. These are the top 3, 4, 5. Obviously, China, can't really count China out of anything that's related to exports. China is there. So these are the top 5 countries, and they pretty much satisfy the world's demand for defense equipments. So there is definitely a market for us to get into maybe slightly lower level products, lower value products right now, and then slowly scale up. But a great, some of the numbers that I actually saw on the defense export in 2016-17, we were exporting about 1,500 crores of defense equipments. That has now
That's around $200 million.
Yeah, somewhere around $200 million. And that has now scaled up to about $1 billion or 8,000, 9,000 crores. There was a dip last year because of COVID, but I think it's back up to 8, 9, 10,000 crores. Different companies are giving us different numbers, but it's in that range. So we've had a 70 to 80% annual growth for the last 5-6 years on defense exports, which is great. We are still scratching the surface. $1 billion in a $1 trillion industry is nothing. But it's a great sort of push that's happened over the last 4 or 5 years. These are some reasons why I think the defense focus on getting defense manufacturing made in India is extremely important. Sahil, you've been geeking out at all this stuff. We've done an episode on this previously. We are doing this again is because we didn't think we did justice to the complex topic this is. So we've tried to structure the information better. We've tried to bring out a lot of new information. Sahil, you've been geeking out on this topic for months now. Tell us what's the current state of the defense market in India.
Okay, so currently the defense market in India is something like an 80,000 crore, $10 billion kind of market. So these are a couple of these numbers are a couple of years old. I was not able to find the latest numbers, but assume it's around 80, 90,000 crores, right? And most of it is from the public sector. So when I say public sector, I mean these are your HALs, your Bharat Forges, and all of that stuff, right? So for if I have to give a couple of examples, HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, they had revenues of 19,900 crores with a profit of actually 3,200 crore. That's not a bad business. I would not mind owning a bit of HAL. Bharat Electronics Limited is 13,000 crores, sorry, 14,000 crores, and they had profits of 2,000 crores. Mazgaon Dock Shipbuilders, they had 4,000 crores of revenue and 500 crores of profit, which is damn good. Um, I do not mind these kind of profit margins that they have. I don't know how a public company has such high profit margins, but it's there. But yeah, you can see that these are pretty big companies, and the private sector is around 17,000 crores. So when you're talking about the private sector, you're talking about companies like Adani Defense, you're talking about companies like, actually, I can't remember the other. Yeah, Reliance. Obviously, Reliance is a big part of it, etc., etc. Right? In order to promote defense indigenization, the government banned a bunch of stuff in 2020. This, I remember this being on all the papers, like, oh, government bans import of 101 defense equipment, and 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 there are only 460 licenses for defense manufacturing that have been issued to private companies in India. Think about this. This is a 63,000 crore in the public sector, 17,000 crores in the private sector, 80,000 crore market, only 460 licenses. That is a small, very concentrated market, right? It can be expanded quite significantly.
And this goes back to our point of higher barriers to entry, right? By no means does this market allow you to enter with some startup capital of, seed capital of $1 million or $2 million or anything like that. This is an extremely capital intensive business, regardless of what value chain you enter, right? Even if you enter at a spare part manufacturing facility, it still requires upfront capital investment. So there's one, higher barriers to entry because of the capital that's required. And second, the technical know-how creates a high barrier to entry when you talk about, equipments and different things.
But the thing is, so that even for any kind of government procurement, you have to have certain revenue, minimum revenue also to start supplying. So if you want to do a tender for 100 crores, there will be a minimum revenue of like 100, 200 crores or something like that, right? So that is also barrier to entry for a lot of small companies. But anyway, some of the private companies, like I said, Reliance is there, Larsen and Toubro is there, Mahindra Defense Systems is there, Adani Defense is there. There are a lot of these private companies that are there. When I say private, I don't mean private limited. I mean private, not publicly owned, right? So there are all of these companies that are there, only 460 licenses though. So then the next question is that this is the current state of the defense market, around 80,000 crores. Our exports are around 9,000 crores. So that's about $1 billion. How much bigger can it get, right? Is this a big focus area for the government? And I would say that that is a solid yes. And this has been a focus area for the government since 2014. Since the current government came into power, it's been a focus for them. But since 2014, they've been kind of floundering, I would say. They've done certain things well, and they've done certain things not so well. So there are a couple of policies that are in force right now, which I would say these are the policies that are basically setting the agenda for the defense procurement in India right now. So the two ones that I found were the Defense Production Policy of 2018 and the Defense Production and Export Promotion Policy of 2020. Okay. So in the Defense Production Policy of 2018, the first question that you ask with any of these policies is, what is the goal of this policy? And the goal of this policy is to increase the sector's turnover to $25 billion and $5 billion of exports by 2025. 2025 is right around the corner in 3 years. And we are currently at around $1.5 billion in exports, and the market is around $10 to $15 billion. So we're still quite a bit away from getting to these targets, but we still have 3 years left, right? And like Siddharth already mentioned, we have already improved quite significantly.
What the government has been doing with these policies is, as you mentioned earlier, it came out with a list that they do not want to import anymore. So these are lists, these are
Yeah.
products that are banned, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like the product is not being used anymore. The Indian government, the Indian Navy, the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force probably still need these products. And what their government is basically saying that, hey, I'm giving you an open market. Just go out, build this, and we will buy it. Right. So it
Yeah.
is sort of handing it on the platter for some of these private and public companies. And I think one of the things that they've mentioned in the policies, they're going to keep updating this list over the next 3, 4, 5 years,
Yeah.
where slowly but surely a lot of these products are actually going to be banned. And one of the things that I want to mention here is when especially when I was reading defense equipment and stuff like that, the original thought is, oh, how will we just go from not manufacturing these MiGs to manufacturing this MiGs or these, large equipments? But it's actually not that, right? It is about a lot of small components, radar systems, communication systems, something that turbine that goes into a ship or something like that. There are lists of hundreds and thousands of products that the government puts out saying that we want to procure this within India. So it's technically telling you what they want, telling you that we've stopped importing it from anywhere else and giving you a market for it. Now, can you actually go out and develop that product? Which is not that easy, but yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, exactly what Siddharth said, right? You can go to the website of a lot of these companies like HAL and stuff like that, or you can go to the DRDO website and they have these lists that, hey, we're looking for these things. Can anybody do it? And I believe that if nobody in India is able to do it, then they go out and they get it done. I have from some people I've spoken to in this industry, I've heard some cynical takes on all of this. I think you can pretty much get what I'm implying by what the cynical takes are. I'm not going to talk about it. But there are issues with this system. But anyways, the defense production policy, yeah. So it talks about stopping the import of several products. It also talks about FDI. So why is FDI important? First of all, because it's a capital intensive business, but secondly, also because we don't have the technology for a lot of this stuff. So just like the Adani and that Israeli JV that we spoke about earlier, the 50-50 JV over there, Adani got the technology from that Israeli company because they could not have developed it themselves. So the defense production policy has allowed a significant increase in the amount of FDI for defense. So the cap went from 26%, then to 49%, then to 74% through the automatic route. And you can even get 100% FDI if you get the Ministry of Defense's approval. So a foreign entity can set up a 100% foreign-owned defense manufacturing business in India if they get the MOD's approval. But they can also do it with 74% ownership through the automatic route. You would think, Siddharth, that, oh my God, that, once this is going to open the floodgates, there are going to be so many people. Since April 2000 to March 2022, how many millions of dollars of FDI do you think has come in for defense in India?
$300-400 million, $500 million, because I mean, this is a huge industry.
$12 million. We're talking about 22 years. There's been $12.5 million of FDI inflow into India. And actually, I would say most of it has been in the last couple of years. I don't have the 2020 numbers. I don't have the 2021 numbers, but the FY19 numbers was $2 million. Before that, it was all like 0.01 million, 0.1 million and stuff like that. It's nothing.
Is this because the previous government never focused on it, and even the first part of the current government, from what you're saying, if it's loaded in the last 5-6 years, why do you think this has happened? Do you have any takes on why the FDIs are so low on this?
I have several opinions. I don't know which one of them is probably true. First of all, I would say India is not necessarily the most
ease of business.
Exactly. It's not the most conducive place to, as a foreigner, to come in and do business, especially for an industry like defense, where the Indian government is known to change their minds and change the laws and stuff like that very quickly, especially about something like defense. It's likely that they might kick you out, especially like if you go to war with that country for whatever reason, or if it's an American company, right? So the biggest defense companies in the world are American. Lockheed Martin, Boeing,
Yeah.
all of them. Boeing's defense is actually much bigger than their aeroplane manufacturing. So let's say what's happening right now, Russia, Ukraine, right? That Boeing set up a manufacturing facility in India for defense specifically. This whole Russia Ukraine thing happened. India refused to take any stance. The US imposed sanctions, and then what happens to that manufacturing facility?
Yeah.
Right. Stuff like
And
that.
the other thing that I think could also be true is this FDI policy doesn't really work without the ban on imports, right? Because if you can just keep importing, then you'll probably say that, hey, let's not, for that 5-10 extra profit margin that you might be able to get by setting up a plant in India, let's not go through that hassle. Let's import from China, Israel, France, US, wherever the government is buying it at the price that we want them to buy it at. Why go through that hassle, right? So I think the combination of these two different things probably should create a lot of FDI. I do have a very quick story to share here. I shared it in the previous episode, but if you're listening to this, I want to just mention this. One of my friends from ISB actually got into this sector, and he was backed by an HNI who invested in the business, and he's the one who is running it, and I'm sure he has some equity stake as well. But one of the things that he mentioned was they worked with a German company to get the technology know-how. So there might not be a direct FDI investment in terms of getting the money in, but they had FDI in terms of they had investment in terms of, understanding the technology and stuff like that. And now they've expanded the portfolio of different products. And he also mentioned, which is funny, that he finds the export market significantly easier and more lucrative to deal with while manufacturing in India, compared to the Indian sort of supplying it to the Indian government. No, I mean, I'm not doubting that at all, to be honest.
I'm not surprised at all. Yeah.
Right.
I supply to the Indian government. That's products that's not as important as this. And so I'm not surprised at all.
But my point being, the FDI maybe is low also because direct money is probably not coming in, but technology know-how and some sort of partnerships are coming in through that. Maybe even, the Indian company is actually paying the external company saying that, hey, we want the technology, so I'm going to be paying you. And therefore, there's no question of FDI in that case.
So technology transfer is a very tricky issue. We kind of spoke about it in the last episode as well. They have the Indian government, specifically for defense, had all of these schemes called like global make local, stuff like that. And in that, there were all of these clauses about technology transfer and all that stuff. It's a very, very tricky issue. And a lot of this technology transfer is also dictated by foreign governments, and it's also about deals at that level. So I don't know how much power you have in your hands when you're negotiating when it comes to defense.
Yeah.